Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis show. And it's springtime in parts of the world. In the Northern Hemisphere, and our friends down in the Southern Hemisphere, it ain't. And here in Colorado, it ain't. But that's okay. We were just talking about that. That's why I got to throw that out there. We're talking about trees budding and how it's nice to kind of anticipate that spring. And what got us talking about it is the buds going off, popping out in Indiana, where Andrea's from. Andrea Sloan, good to have you and glad you're joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So my biggest question, me being I'll call myself a closet engineer at this point in life because I ain't done any true engineering in a long time. So I like to be a tinker, and digging holes is part of that tinker. And I'm just curious, how did you get into the Groudbreakers? How did you get into that business? I mean, do you have an affinity to shovels or just holes in the ground or what?
I think if anybody has an affinity for shovels, they should definitely have their head checked. But no, it's right time, right place. And yeah, had an opportunity pop up to be a part of this great company and took advantage of it.
Well, so was it like in your network? I mean, did you drive by and see a sign or I mean, seriously, I'm just kind of, because it's a kind of a phenomenal thing to buy a business. It's not just most people, kind of come up with an idea and start a business sort of thing. But when you buy a business and you step into it, that's a whole nother world.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I always have to give it up to people that start a business because that's a whole nother ball game. And so I'm glad I was able to purchase into a well-established business. But kind of how I got started, I guess the long story short of it, I was working as a consultant for the Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs. So I helped staff service members that were transitioning out of the military and actually members of our National Guard that were still serving in the military, might be underemployed, into jobs within Indiana. So just like we have a problem right now, we have more jobs than there are people. And our governor of Indiana, Governor Holcomb, said, what better way than fill them with veterans? And so I worked in all industries, from construction to healthcare, technology, engineering, and I helped be the connecting point for veterans and jobs within our community. So, a lot of times companies have a disconnect on the benefits of hiring veterans. I think a lot of times when you join the military, most of the time you're 18, you serve 20 years in the military, and now you're like, okay, now what? And you don't, a lot of the people getting out might not have a college education, and now you're going up against 20-something-year-olds that might have a degree in engineering or technology. And so how are you going to differentiate yourself? And I really helped companies understand, okay, well, what are the benefits of hiring our US military? Of course, I don't have to tell you all the benefits of that. So I was kind of that connecting point for companies around Indiana, but also let veterans know not to sell themselves short and how they can reach out to these companies and get to the top of the list. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, what similarities do you see between your work then with the veterans and locating different jobs and connecting people to what you're doing now? Like what kind of skills or what techniques do you connect between the two? It seems like there could be quite a few similarities.
Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes, you always ask yourself, right? Like, what is my superpower? Like, what am I good at? Like some people are just, have that engineering brain, or they're great at problem solving, or good at math. Sometimes I kind of grew up in life and I'm like, I really feel like I have no superpower. But But now at the age of 40, well, I'll be 40 in April. I kind of figured out my superpower is connecting and business development. I kind of thrive on it. I love meeting people and love connecting with people and connecting other people to each other. And so that's what I did, with the Department of Veteran Affairs. And that's what you have to do now as a business owner. You are your biggest cheerleader. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I feel like the interchangeable part of it is.
How did you, I guess, how did you come to that conclusion of what your gift was, what you were really good at? Because I think that's a very relatable thing for a lot of people who go through this, especially even with Tribe and Purpose with our coaching. We have a lot of people who we coach through that process, and some people really can struggle with it. So I'd love to hear what your journey was like to discover that.
Literally, I'm the same thing. I struggled all my life because to be honest, I was never great at school. In college, I had to get lots of study groups. School never came easy. I was never in any sports. And so I think I just, age maybe comes with, I wish I had this magic thing to help people, because I really would have appreciated it for myself. But, I think age just kind of helps you. You're just kind of like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. And you kind of think, okay, well, now I enjoy this. Like, I think some people are fortunate enough to find it a little earlier in life. But it is true. I think, just do what makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm. That's a great secret right there. Do what makes you feel good. And I think people are hesitant to do that because they get wrapped around. I'm not going to turn this into a coaching session or a soapbox, but they get wrapped around the axle on that. Well, I don't deserve it, or that's not what so and so thinks I should be doing. What's my friend group or my parents or husband, wife, whatever. What are they going to think about if I start doing this? Yeah,
I had a client last week who identified it as the part of their Catholic guilt. That it was like, well, I was like, yeah, you deserve that. Like, you can be happy. It's okay. Catholic Jesus says it's fine.
Catholic Jesus says it's okay.
I grew up Catholic, so totally understand. So yeah, I think, like I said, I think it comes with age. I mean, I agree. As a woman, I think in particular, it's hard to say, you know what, do what makes me feel good. And, if you don't like it, as long as I'm not hurting anybody.
That's a big step. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. And so, I mean, that's awesome that you did that. I want to tie it back to, your time. Are you still in the reserves, or
no,
graduated out of that, right?
Yeah. So I served for 6 years, and so yes, no longer in the reserves.
So what'd you get out of that time as a enlisted soldier in the Army Reserves there, doing personnel, right?
I like to call it document protection.
There you go. There
Has a little better spin on it.
So what's a key lesson you got out of that's really been a foundational step for you with the business?
So when I was growing up, like I said, I never felt like I had a superpower. So I felt like I was always kind of grasping at things. I think the military, while I was in the reserve, when I look back to see, what it instilled in me, or what I got out of it the most, is just tenacity. And you definitely need that as a business owner.
Oh yeah. Those ruck marches and basic training, and even on drill weekends, huh?
Oh yeah. So it's tenacity, and I mean, not giving up is I would say my biggest takeaway.
And I want to take it and jump into one more thing in this. One of my favorite business books is called The First 90 Days. And a friend of mine gave that to me several years ago. And it's all about, stepping into a senior level job and not being that person that day one goes in and says, we're changing everything. So I want to hear how you transitioned into that first 90 days, because the business was fairly successful when you took over, right?
Oh, yes, it definitely was. And actually, it was one of the reasons I found interest in the business and wanted to buy it. Yeah, it's because it's been around since GroundBreakers was started in 2011. And I started as a president in 2018. So that first 90 days. And to answer your question, one of the things that I really do believe in is empathy and just coming in and learning as much as I possibly can. I always call it being a sponge, because I know I am never the highest expert on anything. So I think I can always learn best from my team. And that's really what I really focused on the first 90 days, just trying to learn as much as possible, because to be honest, Cam and Otis, I didn't even know what a hydrovac excavation truck was 5 years ago.
Love it.
Hey,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well, when did you, so 90 days or whatever, I don't want to get into the specifics more. I think what I was looking for instead of the when, but what was like that first thing that you implemented? You're like, all right, now I think I understand what's going on here. We could do this or that, and we really ought to change this. What was that sort of thing?
So I wish I could say it happened in the first 90 days. I think that was probably my biggest miss as a president, is I was afraid to kind of stir the pot, mix up the boat. And I think we could have made a lot more headway a lot quicker if I wasn't afraid to do that, to come in as an outsider and make those changes. And when I decided that this company could be amazing, and to really dig in and make the hard choices and make the hard changes, that's when we really started exceeding. So it's really about, I think if I answer your question, putting the right people in the right seats. It was the hardest thing, because it came in as an outsider, had to make a lot of changes to some personnel, to some old regime to make it, the company that it needed to be.
You had some guys and gals, I'm going to guess probably just based on the business, mostly guys that have probably been there since the company started, right?
Yeah. And kind of was like, fine with what we're doing, and it wasn't really growing, and
I'm okay with what I'm doing every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, and I love the challenge of growing. So, it excites me, gets me going in the morning. Even though I didn't play sports, I'm pretty competitive.
What was your, I guess, since it was already successful with GroundBreakers, what was your desired trajectory coming into it? Because you already kind of mentioned you wish you were a little bit quicker with some of the changes. Were you looking at it like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to, I'm going to shake things up and we're going to change the game? Or was it more like, okay, let's, tweak things as we go? How did you view it coming into it?
So I viewed it coming into it as, I think really here's my, it's the running joke. I jump into things head first. My husband Excel spreadsheets, everything. And so I really jumped into it head first. hence why I got into the military too. I jumped in and then basic training, I'm like, oh man, what did I get myself into? When I was on that
What
cattle,
that poster showed me.
that cattle car, I was like, hold on a second. So yeah, I jumped in head first, not really having much expectation. And then but I did learn very quickly that my tenacity, I had said, you know what, I gotta make this a great company, and I gotta make those hard choices. So I think that's kind of the first thing that I came in and said, okay, where can we find efficiencies and in our processes in what we do, because it was an older company. So we did paper and pencil. We needed to go over to electronic, find a new accounting system. So really, after purchasing the business, that's kind of what was the whirlwind of making the processes as efficient as possible and building a team that was as efficient as possible.
How did the team react to those early changes?
There were some people more receptive than others. I think that just like anybody, you have to show your worth. And there was some resistance to begin with, but I'm usually, what you see is what you get. And I think people appreciated that and saw that. I don't know, can you cuss on this? I wasn't that I wasn't bullshitting, and that I was in for the long haul, and I had everybody's best interest in mind. So even though I had to make some changes, it was to make sure that everybody, and this is what actually gets me out of bed every day is I'm responsible for 38 people's families and giving them the best life possible, and I love it.
And I love that.
And I'll open this up for both of y'all, but one of the notes I had written down was like, when do you make those changes? Because I think that's a really difficult thing coming into any sort of new organization, new team, of seeing something that you want to change and not being sure when you can actually start moving forward and pushing people towards that. And it sounds like the answer that you just put out, Andrea, is establishing yourself as, I don't know, almost an expert's not the right word, but just that you have their interest in mind.
I think
and
a
that
leader,
you're not just taking them for a walk. A leader, right?
Yeah.
So how can you tell when they're ready for the change? I guess if we're writing the handbook out here of establish yourself as a leader, like what's the KPI to show that you're the leader, then that they're ready for all these changes? And Dad, you can feel free to jump in on this one too.
Yeah, I think is one, establish yourself as leader. I like how you put that. And then two, I don't think anybody's ever ready for change. You just gotta pull the trigger and do it. And but you need to make sure you have a plan in place, plan A and plan B, because everything's not always goes as plan A.
I'm laughing because you bought a business that's the literal sense of the metaphor that I always use about being a leader. And that's just grab a shovel and start digging with your team. So yeah, I'll answer Candace's question. Then I got to go back to that. But I think you have to learn to read people. Is the only way that you can tell as a leader. You have to be able to read the people, and you got to know what your timeline is. What is the information that you can gather, both people, culture, timeline, and anything else is out there that determines, because sometimes you got to roll into that business and it's like, all right, that's it. Today things start to change. Sometimes there ain't 90 days. You don't even get 90 minutes. You get 9 seconds, walk in the door and start doing. So that's a thing. But and I'm trying to figure out the most polite way of asking this. Back to my, grabbing the shovel. I like shovels. I don't have an affinity for them, but they're purposeful. You can use them for a lot of things.
That is true.
Holes, filling the holes back in, killing snakes.
That's true.
Lots of things for shovels. So
We try to stay away from the shovels, though. That's the benefit of our business, is you don't have to shovel.
That's right. There you go. There you go. There's a big advertisement, because that's a big benefit with y'all, what y'all
They're
do.
taking on big shovel.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is, in that metaphorical sense, how did you lead by example when you stepped into this role? I mean, did you go out and drive the truck? Were you operating in the equipment? Were you know, how did you set the example?
Yeah, I mean, all that. I had to get out. I try to drive with a couple of the drivers. I unfortunately can't drive the truck. I don't have a CDL license. I drive it around my parking lot because it is pretty cool, you know, honk the horn. But yeah, you have to get out there, and the guys really appreciate it when you know, go out there. I've worked on jobs. They always make fun of me. I kind of pick a good, you know, 70 and sunny days, but
It's just coincidence, right?
it's just a coincidence. It's with how it worked out in the calendar. But yeah, I do that. Every one of my guys, I do have a woman laborer as well. And I talk with them every day. I mean, every day they come in, I'm saying hi, I'm going out talking with them, you know, talking about their family, talking about what's happening in their life. They know my door is always open. If they walk by and don't say hi, I yell at them and tell them to get in here so I can say hi and check in on them. So I think that's very important to establish credibility as a leader. And it's actually, I think, one of the benefits of GroundBreakers is how we separate ourselves versus our other businesses. I think a lot of people right now are really struggling with labor. And I am very fortunate. I have like a list of people that want to come work for me. I am so very fortunate. And I think that's a lot to do with the culture that we have established here. You know, I know everybody. I know everybody's family. I know what's going on in their life. And it was very important to me to create a culture where people felt like it was family. I know that, you know, it's kind of a cliche. Everybody likes to say it, but I've worked in corporate America, and we spend most of our lives at our jobs. So it's very important that people do what you like, do what you love. And it's, you know, got to get people excited about digging holes. And, and so sometimes that's hard. So you got to make sure they're having fun while they do it. And that's important to me, to keep an important, you know, culture. And that's kind of the way that I think as a leader that I succeeded.
What was the culture like before you got there, without taking too many shots at anybody? But, you know, we were saying that it was already successful. You know, the business itself was already successful. Was the culture pretty successful and you were looking to improve it? Or was the culture one of the big problems you saw?
Culture was definitely a big problem that I saw. Yeah, not to throw anybody under the bus. I doubt my old partner will listen to this, but like I said, I purchased the business from a older gentleman, and he was very much set in, I think, old world ways of thinking of come to work, do your job 8 to 5. You do what you're supposed to do. That's it. And he had no interactions with anyone. Like, they never had a Christmas party. You know, as soon as I came in, we had Christmas parties. So the culture was not, it was definitely something that was an easy fix for sure.
I think that's huge. And just the fact that you hit the nail on the head. And Cameron and I've talked about this many times over the years about changing people's attitude in the team from an extrinsic value, extrinsic motivation to an intrinsic motivation, and they feel that connection to your team. So that's great. And one of the things that I'm always curious about too, in this sense, is what vision or hope did you create for them, like going forward? you know, Bob, who's, you know, the assistant truck driver for the last 5 years, how did you pull, you know, change Bob's attitude from, hey, if somebody offers me $2 more an hour, I'm jumping, to I like it here?
Respect. I think everyone from the top down, from the bottom up, I respect everybody. And I expect my managers to respect everybody. And when I say respect, I mean treat them like you would want to be treated, the old saying. And I think that really creates a good culture of people feel like they mean something to this organization. Another thing that I've kind of, and I guess I'll give a shout out to my mom. I hated it when I was younger, but she always made me write thank you notes. And when you're young, you're like so annoyed. But one of the things that I do, I like to do randomly for my employees, is write thank you notes to them, handwritten, just to kind of let them know, hey, thank you, and I appreciate you.
What kind
That's
of
an awesome thing that is, in the day and age of how long we've been doing emails, 20, 25 years or so, that I think is a huge differentiator. Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of an impact did you see on the team members with, you know, as you started to build the new culture? Were there some people holding on to the 9 to 5, 8 to 5 type thing, or were they liking the more modern culture in that sense?
Yeah, I think people were very open to the new culture. I think they were excited about it. I didn't, other than my old partner, that's it.
I think that's a funny thing people miss when you talk about culture. And you know, whether it's in a business or, you know, I always think in terms of rugby, thinking of coaching and stuff, of it's like when you have what is like pretty darn close to the right answer, people tend to like it. Like, you know, when you change something, and even if it's a big cultural change, but it's like, hey, you know, you can leave work early if you finish all your work. Who's going to be pissed off at that? Like,
I know,
it's like
yeah.
These type of things where it's like, oh, I'm sorry, like I'm treating you as an adult with your own responsibilities. Like, oh no.
Yeah. So there was no issues there.
I had a team sergeant back in the day that one of his favorite phrases was, if you ain't got nothing to do, don't do it here.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that.
Yeah, there was, I mean, there's so much truth to that, right? I mean, if you're done, if you've finished everything, like, you know, whatever your chores, your tasks, your objectives, you've accomplished those things. Then if you're hanging around with nothing to do, guess what you're doing to those of us who still got some other things that we got to get done, right?
Yeah.
You're becoming a distractor most of the time. I mean, there's times and places where, you know, Bob can grab that shovel and dig the hole with me.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just one of my favorite metaphors. That's why I was so excited to have you on the show, because we're talking about digging holes, which makes me want to jump to not quite in it yet, but because I got another one that I'm going to follow up with. But those tools that you have aren't $15, $20 shovels that you pick up at the Home Depot.
Oh no. So
for you to take the leap, business growth is a huge investment for your business and your line of business. How do you set that up, and timing, vision, selling it to the team? How do you do that?
One thing I've learned as the president here is that it's very important to have metrics, scorecard. I think you need to have a scorecard of what your business is doing. I think not only in, you know, how the culture is doing for a scorecard, but also, you know, the real numbers. And so we meet weekly. We talk about, you know, where we're at, where we're, you know, lacking, and that kind of looks at, okay, do we need to buy another $500,000 truck? is the real number. So I have that's one of the things that I've implemented over the last 3 years is a new accounting system that we make sure we track everything by truck, all of our expenses. And so we can, get the real revenue per truck. And then that way we can kind of see, our trucks hitting the metrics and, if we need more. So I started at GroundBreakers with 9 trucks, and today we have 22, and we should have 23 at the end of April.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Awesome expansion.
Yeah.
And what I'm fascinated by the fact that that's every bit, that's a foot stomper. And I'm sure business owners, business leaders, if you don't have some sort of scorecard, you're doomed to screw it up.
Oh, yeah.
Number one.
Numbers don't lie, so you need to have a scorecard.
No, but what I'm really fascinated by, and I love this in your industry, that you've broke it down to truck. And here comes the engineer again, in the analysis of it. Have you gotten to the point now, and I don't want you to, divulge any trade secrets or anything for your team, but into the point of where truck 412 is an older vehicle, so it's not as efficient as 871.
Oh yeah, definitely. And truck 371, I can't remember what number you gave it, but
close enough.
You had to use
Yeah.
3 digits. You had to use 3 digits. Dad, you could have done truck 2, truck 3.
I know.
I couldn't do that.
My husband said I should rename all my trucks like Alpha 1, Bravo 2, Yeah.
Got to put bumper numbers on them there,
Yeah.
soldier, right?
Yeah. So so the one thing about, I would say, that is not fun with these trucks is the maintenance costs. So that's what we're able to really keep track of is, truck 1 is really costing us a lot more than truck 2. And so that gives us, okay, well, what do we need to do? We need to, these trucks have about a 7 to, I would say, 9-year shelf life. And so that kind of shows, hey, what do we need to start thinking of turning this truck in and upgrading to a new one?
What I'm really curious about, we talk about all the time on the show of creativity and innovation, and how sometimes, a lot of the time, that you get the most innovation from people who are, the phrase I always use is either young or young in the field. And you were definitely one who came in very young to the field. Like you said, you didn't know much about what you were getting yourself into. You just dove in head first. Did you find that helped you to see some opportunities for innovation that other people weren't seeing because they were a little bit too much in the weeds?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, we were a paper and pencil shop. And when I say paper and pencil, like everything was done pen and paper. We had so much paper. It was insane, but it was a system that worked. I mean, I came in 2018, like I said, it was business since 2011, so it worked. But man, I was like, we can be so much more efficient and save so many trees.
Was there anything on the, like, I guess I would say, like, more like technical side, like with like, this is coming from even less of an understanding than what you probably had when you first started, but like, oh my gosh, we're still using this kind of a truck, couldn't we just do this? And they all go, wow, that makes sense, that type of a thing, where it's like, why didn't we think of that?
I would say no. I said that's one thing about hydrovac excavation. If you look back at the history of hydrovac excavation, there hasn't been a whole lot of changes. Not to say there can't, and I think this goes back to superpowers. Engineering is definitely not my superpower, and that's why I feel like I have great people around me to make sure that if there's innovation that we can do, that they fully understand all the capabilities of the truck, or making sure that we know what's new in the market, things like that. But I will tell you, Cam, I would say hydrovac excavation is not on the forefront of technological breakthrough.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I know where to put my
Yeah.
cards now.
Yeah, we're slow and steady.
There you go. There you go. Well, and that leads to my question, which is, well, what's next for GroundBreakers? Right? You mentioned, one more truck next month. Is there a, a franchise? Is there a expand out into other areas, get more trucks? What's next? What are you looking towards?
So this has been my struggle the last, I would say, 6 months as a leader. You have to kind of can't think, 6 months from now. You have to think 6 months. You have to think year. You have to make 3 years, 5 year, 10 year. Where are we going? And lucky for me, there is so much opportunity in construction, right now, and not only construction, but in the type of construction we work in. So my biggest clients are utilities. So electric, gas pipeline, water. So I always like to say I'm kind of recession proof. Everybody enjoys the basic utilities of electricity and a flushing toilet. So I'm excited because I think there's so much opportunity to expand within the Midwest. Our biggest competitor, I won't say their name because I don't want to give them any airway, but it's Badger hydrovac excavation, and they're across the U.S. They're kind of I like to call them the McDonald's of the game. They were kind of the first ones to hydrovac excavation on a large scale. They're kind of like McDonald's. They give you a stomach ache after you use them, but I hope to, I would love it. So they're actually based out of Canada. They're a publicly traded company in Canada, and that's my goal. I want to be across the U.S. I want to ring that bell one day, and so I want to, slowly expand into different marketplaces, add additional service lines. So hydrovac excavation, a kind of a next service line that kind of complements is using jetting. So jetting sewer lines and pipeline, and then camera TV through the pipelines to make sure if there's any cracks, things like that. So yeah, there's so much opportunity, and I'm so excited for what lies ahead.
That's cool. That's cool. And you mentioned kind of recession proof. My mind jumped back to the what's the Biden thing right now? Build Back Better or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Are you getting some benefits out of that program?
Well, I mean, not yet, but I definitely I think they want to do a lot of infrastructure, which we would be a big part of that. So, and then I'm so fortunate to be able to have my certification as a veteran-owned business. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's crucial because still to this day, I think that's the biggest miss that we have. And that's what kind of in the future I would like to do. And I always try to do is I would like to see more veterans in business.
When you were first looking at GroundBreakers, did you look at the recession proof aspect of it at the time, or is that something you kind of realized afterwards? Because I know for me, that's why I studied agricultural business, because I was like, people got to eat, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely, one of the main things that when I looked at this business and kind of drew me to it was is recession proof. You gotta, we just went through a huge downturn, in 2008 with the housing market, and construction tanked. And so I was like, you want to make sure that you're a part of something that I'm not saying that if we had another 2008, I wouldn't be impacted, but it wouldn't sting as bad.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that outlook, because I always find that curious of what's going to happen. So now I
Yeah,
got
my crystal ball told me.
yeah, just don't drop that thing. That's where all
Yeah.
the secrets are. Well, awesome. I'm my what did I learn is going to be a re-emphasis, and you just said it. So we'll just continue to stomp our foot 3 times on the stage behind the podium like a good Army instructor would do, and that's hiring vets and the benefits of hiring vets. And all right, give me just about 30 seconds, because I had a call with a client yesterday, one of my fellows that I'm coaching, and he was told by somebody in another nonprofit organization designed to help veterans or soon to be veterans transition into the job market. And he was told, don't set your expectations too high.
Oh man.
Ooh, that just, poor guy.
Yeah.
Get the full brunt of me getting pissed off about that. But I think he realized that was some really poor advice from that organization.
Yeah.
And vets out there, if somebody tells you that, that's BS, throw it out the window. Do what you want to do, pursue what you want to pursue, take the job you want to take. And those of you who are hiring vets that don't know why, look it up or call me. Call me. And call Andrea too, because you know what, I can tell you, the laundry list just goes on and on, from figuring it out to problem solving to loyalty to just that. You kept saying the T word, so I'll use it again, the tenacity to get it done. Yeah. There's a reason that they made it through basic training, and they survived an enlistment, or they survived, multiple deployments to Iraq or Afghanistan. All that BS about guys flipping out, like we used to make fun of the mail room and the post office. Don't go postal. Now, that don't happen. That don't happen. So don't worry about that crazy shit that somebody started out there. So I come back before I get, I put a smile on my face and say, hire veterans. And that's what I'm going to emphasize as my learned. Camden, how about you?
I gotta jump on one thing there and just say, whatever percentage of the population that has that, I don't even know the story behind it, but I can infer what you're saying by postal. Whatever percentage of the normal population, it is definitely a significantly smaller percentage inside the veteran population. I can say that much.
Yeah.
But what I learned today is, when we were talking about when is the time to make a change when you come into a new organization. Well, I think we got the 3 steps pretty well hashed out. It's establishing yourself as a leader, leading by example, then reading your team, reading them as people, and seeing when they're ready to make those changes. And when they're ready, make the change. Because if you're making the right change, they're going to back you up on it.
Exactly. And if you don't make the right change, you can always pivot.
And they will let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Andrea, what'd you learn?
So what I learned, if you ain't got nothing to do, don't do it here.
I'm out.
Love it.
I think I'm gonna put that sign up on the back. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like that takeaway.
Man.
And I'm gonna have to read the first 90 days. I think somebody else mentioned that book to me. So hey, if it hits me twice, then it must be good.
Yep. It was one of those books. Matter of fact, I was telling somebody this yesterday. It's one of those books I wish I would have stumbled across within 6 months of retiring from the Army, because of it's not just, and I wish I was getting benefit out of this book, but or kickbacks, but it's not just that first 90 days. It's a great business understanding book, and that's why I like it so much.
Yeah. And I do want to go back to hiring veterans, and I would tell your friend that fight for what he wants. Keep going. Yeah. If you want that job, fight tooth and nail to get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think if we got a nickel for every book you recommended, we'd be doing all right.
Yeah, no.
Hey, you got to be an influencer
figure out how to work
on
out that
Instagram.
deal.
That's right. I'll just reach over, start holding them up.
Yeah, you need to go on Instagram. You can be with an influencer.
There you go.
There
That's
we go.
Yeah.
Otis influencer. That's Andrea, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time out of the day. How do folks get in touch with you and learn more about what y'all got going on and learn from you?
Oh yeah, I would definitely look us up. We are www.groundbreakersllc.com, and shoot me an email. Like I said, my door is always open. I love hearing from people, and if I can be that connecting force, happy to do it. My email is Andrea, ANDREA .Sloan, SLOAN at groundbreakersllc.com.
Perfect. Perfect. I appreciate that. And I'd be willing to bet somebody gonna give you a holler and ask for that advice on how to kick off a business or find that right job, especially in the Indiana area. I bet your connections are great. So
We'd love to have you here.
Yeah.
Where the spring buds are popping out.
That's right. There you go. There's your Indiana recruiting line.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't hit a pothole.
All right. Well, thanks again, Andrea. Camden, run us up.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, Andrea Sloan, for joining us today, and our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next week.